Apex of the Void. For 10,000 years, the Xyrran Dominion had reigned as the galaxy's undisputed predators. They were not merely conquerors. They were hunters. Their ships did not arrive with emissaries or treaties, but with silence. Great shadowed vessels that blotted out suns and descended like beasts from the void. When the Xyrrans came, entire worlds became their forests, entire species reduced to prey. The Xyrrans themselves were legends incarnate. Reptilian titans with bodies sculpted by eons of survival on a world that devoured the weak. Thick armored scales gleamed like forged bronze, and jaws lined with serrated teeth split wide enough to crush a warrior whole. Their eyes, a cruel amber, burned with a hunger never quenched. To other species, they were nightmares given flesh. And for millennia, no one challenged them. The Dominion did not measure wealth in credits or metal, but in trophies. The bones of their prey mounted on warships, the screams of conquered species stored in crystalline vaults, the bloodlines extinguished to remind the galaxy who is Apex. Their fleets traveled from star to star not for resources, but for sport. And each hunt reinforced their belief. All others existed only to sharpen their claws. But over time, the galaxy changed. The prey species dwindled. Those who had survived learned to hide, building their civilizations in the cracks the Dominion overlooked. The Xyrrans grew lazy, arrogant. Their culture began to rot, fattened by the memory of glory. It was during such stagnation the new rumor spread. From the eastern fringe came whispers of a young species, a primitive bipedal race clinging to a blue planet they called Earth. These beings, called humans, were laughably fragile. No scales, no natural weapons, only soft flesh and bones thin as twigs. Their technology was outdated, reliant on metal projectiles, fire, and combustion. Their wars were short and bloody, their lifespans brief. The Xyrrans laughed. To them, humanity was an insult to the very concept of predator and prey. Weaklings that had somehow stumbled into the stars. And like all weaklings, they existed for one purpose: the hunt. On the Dominion flagship Vorax Fong, the High Predator addressed his gathered lieutenants. His voice was a guttural growl, vibrating through the bone-lined chamber. These humans, he paused to savor the word, his jaws curling in amusement. They are nothing, barely above the animals we devoured in our youth. Yet they have dared spread across 3 systems. And worse, they speak as if equals to the stars. The chamber erupted in mocking laughter. Scaled fists slammed against the table of carved skulls. "Shall we take them, High Predator?" One lieutenant hissed eagerly, her claws flexing. "A fresh quarry. A chance to awaken our young with the taste of blood." "Yes," the Predator snarled. His crest flared, an ancient gesture of dominance. "We have grown too soft on the bones of lesser prey. Let the galaxy be reminded of our supremacy. These humans shall not merely fall, they shall be harvested. Their world stripped, their young devoured, their name erased." The War Council ended with a roar that shook the chamber. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion hungered. The fleet moved quickly. A dozen warships, their hulls adorned with the remains of extinct species, turned toward the Sol system. The journey through slip space was short, and the anticipation was palpable. Xyrran hunters sharpened their talons and prepared ceremonial pits where human captives would be broken. On the bridge of the flagship, a junior hunter dared voice a thought. "High Predator, what if the rumors are exaggerated? What if these humans are not prey, but something more?" The Predator turned slowly, his massive frame dwarfing the younger warrior. The air thickened with menace. "More." The word dripped with contempt. "Do you see fangs in their images? Do you see claws, scales, or armor? They fight with sticks that burn powder. They bleed as easily as cattle. They are nothing, and we are everything." He leaned close, rows of teeth glinting. "Remember this. Predators do not question the hunt. They enjoy it." The junior bowed low, silent, though unease lingered in his eyes. When the fleet finally emerged at the edge of the Sol system, the Predator gazed at the blue-green orb suspended in the void. "Earth, His chest rumbled with anticipation. At last, prey worthy of memory. He raised a clawed hand, and the command rippled across the fleet. Begin the hunt. Engines roared, and the warships surged forward like beasts unleashed. The stars themselves seemed to shudder as the Dominion descended toward humanity, believing the old order immutable. They had no idea that the galaxy's hierarchy was about to be rewritten. For the first time in their history, the hunters were approaching prey that did not run. The first encounter, the first Xyrran attack, came without warning. No demands, no declarations of war, only fire and teeth. The colony world of Erebus 3 was a thriving outpost on the edge of human space, its cities carved into the rocky valleys of a red desert world. It died in a single night. Screams filled the comms as armored titans tore through defenses. The Xyrrans struck with brutal efficiency, dropping from orbit in fanged transports shaped like predators themselves. They did not simply conquer. They stalked the streets, ripping through barricades and dragging colonists into the shadows. For every human they killed, another was taken alive, bound in chains of living sinew. By dawn, only ruins remained. The Xyrrans left the shattered city smoldering, not to occupy, but to savor the memory of the kill. The news reached Earth within hours. Command centers buzzed with disbelief as grainy images flickered across the network. A towering creature, nearly 3 meters tall, dragging a screaming man in one clawed hand. Another, armored in bone and metal, crouched over the corpse of a Marine, tearing strips of flesh as trophies. "They're not soldiers," whispered Lieutenant Markov, staring at the footage in shock. "They're hunters." The word sent a chill through the war room. Humanity's response was swift. Task forces were scrambled, fleets diverted, and alliances galvanized. But against the Xyrrans, the first battles were massacres. In orbit above Europa Station, the Dominion struck again. Human ships fired volleys of railgun rounds and missile barges, but the alien warships danced around them, their armor shrugging off impacts that should have split them apart. Then came the boarding parties, hulking predators tearing through airlocks, shrugging off bullets, and cutting down defenders with claws and plasma-edged blades. A single Xyrran stood against 20 Marines in one corridor. The humans fired until their barrels glowed red, but the creatures simply roared, charged, and tore them apart, leaving only a blood-soaked deck. For the Dominion, it was glorious sport. For humanity, it was a revelation. These creatures did not fight wars as humans understood them. They hunted. Yet not all encounters went as the predators expected. On the shattered surface of Erebus 3, a Xyrran hunting party tracked survivors through the ruins of an industrial sector. They moved with confidence, their keen senses following the faint scent of human sweat and fear. But as they turned a corner, the lead hunter stopped. His nostrils flared. The air was wrong. A tripwire snapped. Explosives hidden beneath rubble detonated, hurling shrapnel through the hunting pack. 2 Xyrrans went down immediately, their scales shredded. The others roared in fury, but gunfire erupted from the shadows, controlled bursts, disciplined volleys. Humans emerged, not as panicked prey, but as soldiers. The hunters fell back, bleeding ichor. Their leader hissed in rage, slamming a fist into the wall. This was not the way prey behaved. Prey ran. Prey hid. But these humans, they fought back. And worse, they used traps. Captured footage from the ambush spread quickly among Earth's military. Colonel Hayes, grizzled veteran of Mars campaigns, studied the images with cold intensity. "Look at them," he said, pausing the recording on the wide, amber eyes of a snarling Xyrran. "They think they're the only predators in the room." He glanced around the briefing chamber at the young officers gathered there. "They've forgotten what we are. Humanity didn't rise to the top of Earth by being the strongest or fastest. We hunted mammoths twice our size, stalked lions in the dark, and burned out nests of things that saw us as food. These bastards? They're about to learn that we're predators too." His words lit a fire in the room. The strategy shifted. Humanity would stop reacting. They would start hunting. The first true reversal came at Outpost Vega, a mining colony on the fringe. When a Xyrran strike team descended, expecting easy prey, they found the settlement deserted. Growling, they advanced through the silent corridors, weapons drawn, senses alert. Then, faintly, came the sound of movement, metal scraping on metal. The hunters split into pairs, stalking the noise. One paused beside a storage container, sniffing the air. With a sudden snarl, he wrenched the door open. Flames erupted. A jury-rigged flamethrower bathed the hunter in fire, his scales blackening, his roar turning into a shriek of pure terror. The other spun just as gunfire and explosives detonated around them. Humans burst from cover, striking with ferocity. Within minutes, the hunters lay dead, their bodies burning in pools of fire. For the first time in memory, the Xyrrans had been ambushed, hunted like beasts. On the Dominion flagship, the High Predator received the report. He listened in silence, his claws tapping against the bone throne. "Impossible," one lieutenant growled. "Pray do not hunt." But the High Predator was silent. His amber eyes narrowed, a flicker of something foreign glinting within them. Not fear, never fear, but recognition. The humans were not prey. Not entirely. There was something else, something dangerous. The reversal. The Dominion had never known retreat. For 10 millennia, their fleets advanced like storms, never yielding, never chased. But now, across the void, Xyrran warships limped home with wounds carved deep by human weapons. At first, the losses were dismissed as anomalies, unlucky ambushes, flawed hunts. But patterns began to emerge. Outposts reported hunters vanishing without trace. Entire strike teams sent to pacify human colonies failed to return. Where once the Dominion harvested prey at will, now their scouts disappeared into silence. The galaxy whispered. The hunters were being hunted. On Luton's moon, a Xyrran pack prowled the frozen canyons. Their thermal vision cut through the mist, following faint heat signatures left by human survivors. The hunters moved with predatory confidence, claws scraping against ice, weapons gleaming with frost. Then, the ground beneath them exploded. Claymore mines erupted in a wall of fire and shrapnel, shredding 2 hunters instantly. The survivors roared in fury, firing plasma rifles blindly into the smoke. But from the ridges above, shadows moved. Humans in camouflaged armor, rifles braced, firing disciplined bursts. The hunters returned fire, but their plasma bolts hissed harmlessly against angled barriers of ice and steel. Then came the second wave, incendiary grenades rolling down the slopes, bursting into sheets of flame. The Xyrrans shrieked, an ancient, primal terror tearing through them. One staggered, his scales alight, and for the first time in centuries, he did not feel like a predator. He felt like prey. News of the ambushes reached Earth with grim satisfaction. Across human space, a new doctrine spread like wildfire. Turn the hunt. Colonel Hayes stood before a room of soldiers, his voice gravelly but fierce. These things think they're apex predators. But predators can be studied, tracked, broken. We've done it before. Lions, wolves, tigers, bears, they all thought they owned the food chain. But humans? We learned to work in packs, lay traps, and use fire. He gestured to the holomap, glowing red with Xyrran hunting routes. The Xyrrans aren't the hunters anymore. They're the quarry, and we'll make the galaxy watch as we skin them alive. The soldiers roared in agreement. A new kind of war had begun. Human fleets adapted faster than the Xyrrans anticipated. Where Dominion warships relied on intimidation and brute strength, humans fought like wolves. Destroyers feigned retreat, luring hunting vessels into asteroid fields rigged with mines. Carriers launched drone swarms that overwhelmed Xyrran targeting systems, tearing through hulls like piranhas. Railguns, once mocked as crude, punched straight through scales and armor alike, their kinetic energy unstoppable. But the most terrifying weapon was fire. Across a dozen battlefields, humans wielded flamethrowers, incendiaries, and napalm with ruthless precision. To the Xyrrans, fire was more than pain. It was a memory encoded in their DNA. Their homeworld's jungles had been rife with wildfires, predators fleeing flames that devoured forests whole. They had evolved to fear it, to avoid it. Now humanity wielded it as a banner of war. Flames poured through bunkers, consuming hunters in shrieking agony. Napalm streaked across trenches, clinging to scales and armor, turning Xyrran war cries into panic screams. Whole packs broke and fled at the sight of burning jets arcing across the battlefield. Among the Dominion, fear spread like rot. In the throne chamber of Vorix Fong, lieutenants hissed at one another in growing panic. Reports cluttered the air, detailing losses on a scale they had never imagined. One slammed a claw into the table of skulls. "This is impossible. They are prey. Prey. They cannot fight like this. They know our tactics." Another growled, her crest trembling. "They strike from shadows. They stalk us. Her voice faltered. "They hunt us." Silence fell. The word hung in the air like poison. The high predator, ancient and scarred, leaned forward on his throne. His eyes glowed with cold fury, but beneath it lurked something dangerous, doubt. "I warned you," he snarled softly. "Arrogance blinds. These humans are no prey. They are predators, and they hunt without honor." His words unsettled the chamber. Among Xyrrans, honor was sacred. The hunt was ritual, but humans fought without rules, without respect. They burned dens, trapped corridors, slaughtered entire packs. To the Dominion, it was savagery. To humans, it was survival. Elsewhere, on a ruined colony world, a captured Xyrran hunter sat in chains. His scales were scorched black, his claws shattered. Across from him sat Captain Ramirez, her rifle resting casually across her knees. "You thought this would be easy," she said evenly. "Thought we'd run screaming into your claws. But here's the truth. You've never met a species like us." The Xyrran hissed weakly, baring his teeth. "We're the apex. We are the hunters." Ramirez leaned forward, her eyes cold. "Not anymore." She pressed a button. A hollow screen lit up, showing footage of human soldiers advancing through flames, their shadows long and monstrous as Xyrrans fled before them. "Now it's our hunt." The alien's eyes widened, not in rage, but in something far worse. Recognition. Across the stars, the tide turned. The galaxy watched in awe as humanity, fragile, flesh-bound, short-lived humanity, did what no species had dared. They hunted the hunters, and the once feared Dominion, whose name had been synonymous with terror, now carried a new title whispered in the shadows of alien taverns and council halls alike. Prey. The hunt completed, the end began on the Xyrran homeworld. It was a savage planet of steaming jungles and volcanic mountains, a crucible that had birthed predators of unmatched ferocity. For ages, the Dominion had ruled it as gods, their dens carved into cliffs, their fleets rising from shipyards built atop rivers of lava. The world itself was a monument to survival. Now, for the first time, it trembled beneath alien engines. Human fleets arrived in waves, black silhouettes blotting out the stars. Carriers, destroyers, and troop transports descended with ruthless precision, their weapons primed not for intimidation, but extermination. Railguns charged, missiles locked, and orbital bombardments prepared to fall like fire from heaven. From the bridge of the carrier Resolute Dawn, General Hayes gave the order. His voice was steady, unyielding. "Begin the hunt." The bombardment shook the skies. Cities of stone and bone shattered under kinetic strikes. Shipyards crumbled into rivers of molten rock. Great hunting halls, where generations of predators had feasted on trophies, were reduced to ash in seconds. But the true battle came on the ground. Human dropships roared through the atmosphere, deploying soldiers into the dense jungles. The air was thick with alien cries as Xyrran packs rallied, determined to defend their homeworld. For the first time in history, the hunters fought not as aggressors, but as the cornered. Yet even on their own soil, the Xyrrans found no reprieve. Human soldiers spread like wildfire, moving in disciplined formations. Flamethrower teams swept through undergrowth, igniting the ferns that had once hidden stalking beasts. Traps were laid in canyons, explosives funneled packs into kill zones. Snipers picked off leaders, severing coordination. Everywhere the Xyrrans turned, fire and steel awaited. In the ruins of a jungle temple, a Xyrran overlord stood defiantly, his scales scarred, his crest bristling. Around him, the last of his pack growled, their weapons drawn. When human soldiers approached, the overlord stepped forward, slamming his clawed fists against his chest. "A challenger leader," he roared, his voice echoing like thunder. "Predator to predator, honor to honor. Face me, and let the hunt decide." General Hayes strode from the ranks, his armor scorched, his rifle slung across his chest. He looked at the towering alien without fear. "You want honor?" Hayes asked coldly. "We're not here for honor. We're here to finish this." He gave a signal. The jungle erupted. Flamethrowers unleashed torrents of fire, engulfing the Overlord's pack in shrieks and smoke. Railgun bursts tore through stone, shattering the temple walls. The Overlord bellowed in fury, charging through the flames with claws outstretched. Hayes raised his rifle and fired. The round struck true, piercing the Predator's chest. The Overlord staggered, choking on his own blood, his amber eyes blazing with disbelief. "This is not the way," he rasped, collapsing into the fire. Hayes looked down at the burning body. His voice was steady, merciless. "No, it's the human way." The battle raged for days, but the outcome was never in doubt. Humanity fought not as prey, nor as equals, but as predators who had learned long ago that survival meant total victory. By the campaign's end, the Xyrran homeworld was silent. Their cities lay in ashes, their jungles burned, their hunting packs exterminated. The Dominion, once feared across the stars, was gone, its name reduced to whispers and warnings. In the aftermath, the galaxy reeled. Species that had cowered for centuries dared to lift their heads, realizing the monsters that had haunted them were no more. Where once the Dominion had stalked, now human fleets patrolled. At the Galactic Council, ambassadors whispered nervously as humanity took its seat. No one mocked their primitive weapons now. Every delegate remembered the images of towering predators fleeing in terror, of flamethrowers sweeping through jungles, of bones left to bleach in firelit ruins. One counselor asked the question that lingered in every alien's mind. How did you do it? How did prey destroy the galaxy's greatest predators? The human ambassador smiled, his expression cold. "We were never prey," he said. "We've always been hunters. The difference is we don't stop until the hunt is finished." On Earth, monuments rose to honor the fallen. But among the soldiers, the memory was not of statues, but of fire, the fire that had cleansed a predator species from existence. For centuries, the Xyrrans had believed themselves apex. They believed no force could bring them low. But humanity had proven otherwise. They were once galactic predators. Now, they were humanity's hunt.